Hello and welcome to the PPN Southeast Psychology Expanded podcast, the podcast that gives NHS psychological professions a personal voice and offers an opportunity to hear about the experience of people within these roles. I'm Mel Ray and I'll be your host for this interview. The PPN Southeast is a membership network for all psychological professionals and other people who are interested in NHS commissioned psychological healthcare. You can see our website link, which will be in the show notes below, and that will give you more information about what the PPN is. So in today's episode, we'll be talking to Matthew Beaton, and Mathew is a qualified CBT therapist and the course lead for one of the MHWP, so that's mental health wellbeing practitioner training courses within the South East. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about Mathew's role. We're going to be talking about how he got into being the course lead, what a typical day looks like, and what, as a course lead provider, he would be looking for anyone who was thinking about becoming an MHWP and applying to that course. We're also going to discuss a little bit about EMDR, a little bit around the importance of lived experience within training roles, and Matthew's going to let us into some of the thoughts he had about what he would like to know now that he didn't know at the beginning of his journey. So we've got a lot to cover in this episode. It's an exciting episode, and Mathew brings some amazing points of view for reflection and things to think about. So let's welcome Matthew Beaton. How are you?
Good, thank you, Mel. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. So we're just going to jump straight in, and I'll ask you, can you tell me a little bit about your job role and how long you've been doing it? Just give us a little bit of a flavour about what it is that you do.
Sure. So I am the course lead for the MHWP training course at the University of Sussex, and I have been doing the role for 2 years now, since the inception of the course at the university. And very briefly, my overall role is to see the general running of the course here at the university.
I mean, you say sort of generally see the running, but I bet that contains so much, overseeing sort of an entire course, especially one that's really up and coming. So it would be great if you could sort of let us know your journey into your role and your profession, how you got there, and just give us a bit of a sort of a flavour of your path.
Sure. So it's been quite a long path getting here, quite a lot of different jobs, different positions I've taken over the time. So I started off working in inpatient environments, working in child and adolescent, as a healthcare assistant, and then I've worked as an occupational therapy assistant. I worked as an assistant psychologist in acquired brain injury, and then once I did that, I found out about the PWP training, went and did my PWP training, really enjoyed that, fell in love a bit with CBT, really, and started recognising I think that's where I wanted to go, and enjoyed the work that I was doing. So did that for a couple of years, and then was lucky enough to go on to some CBT training. So went and did my CBT training after that, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was lovely to carry on my CBT experience, and then after that was given the opportunity to do my EMDR training, so went and did that as well, which again really loved, really enjoyed. And then started, through my experience, became a senior therapist within a talking therapies service. So started doing that for a few years. And a big part of my role as a senior therapist was supporting trainees of courses, university courses, helping them to make sure they had the clients they needed, the support they needed, and just started really enjoying having a relationship with the university and the training provider. Looked into it a bit more and thought that actually that would be something I'd really like to do, and I'd always really enjoyed supervising trainees and wanted the opportunity to support trainee practitioners. This opportunity came up at Sussex about 2.5 years ago, and I think I just jumped at it because I really liked the idea of being involved with a course that had only just started. The MHWP course, very much CBT informed, seemed really interesting. I had experience working at a similar level. So yeah, just grabbed the opportunity with both hands really. And that's where I am now.
And that's so much experience. And I think that there'll be a lot of people out there that can really sort of identify and really recognise with the journey that you've done. Firstly, it would be great if you could just sort of explain to some of our listeners who might not know just briefly what EMDR is.
So it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So a real mouthful. And it's an approach, it's a type of therapy which is primarily used in especially within England and within the NHS, to help people with post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. It does have other utilizations, but currently within the NHS, it's primarily used for PTSD. I would really recommend to anyone who's listening to this, go and read a bit about it. If you're interested, watch some videos. It's one of those things that's very hard to describe in terms of how it works, but getting to see it in action is quite surreal. It's an evidence-based approach. It's used a lot on the continent, in Europe, especially in the Netherlands. It's very popular, and it's kind of gained traction over the years and used a lot with the armed forces in terms of combat stress, and has just gained a lot of traction in terms of evidence base, got a good efficacy in terms of treating PTSD as well. So yeah, very different from the traditional talking therapies and the approach, but I would certainly recommend anyone who might just be interested in what else is out there, have a look, Google it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, just for clarification, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, which you can find in a lot of trauma literature for anyone who's kind of listening. You've gone from healthcare assistant roles into a PWP role, and then you've ended up as a MHWP course lead. So that's really interesting. And I guess I was just wondering, sort of what made you apply for the PWP role that set you on this journey? And then I'll ask you the B after we've got there.
Sure. Thank you. Helps my brain not feel confused. So yeah, good question. When I was working as an assistant psychologist, I think that there was this almost expectation that, well, because you're an assistant psychologist, you're going to want to go and do the doctorate in clinical psychology. And I looked at the doctorate, and it just so happened it wasn't for me. It wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted a course which would allow me to provide interventions to clients straight away, that I could really be getting up and running. I loved the CBT approach. I did a bit of reading about it, and I really liked how it worked. It kind of fit with my worldview. It fit with what makes sense to me personally. So that's why I gravitated towards that. And I think the opportunity to do something which was a year-long training, which would equip me with a recognised qualification, which would allow me then to be able to work in the NHS and help people with anxiety and depression was something that really stood out for me, because I'd always wanted to help people, and this felt like some way that I could really go out and help people now and support them now. So I was really I mean, this is only, I started my PWP training only about 2 years after the course existed. So when I left university from my undergrad, it didn't exist. So I think it was a bit by chance that I discovered it, and it's great now that it's out there, people know about it, and the opportunities there. So it gives a little bit more diversity in terms of options out there for individuals. So, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my PWP training, and I think it really encouraged me to recognise the importance of what is called low intensity intervention work. So that guided self-help approach, and how useful it can be, and how many people can be helped in the community because of this approach as well.
I think that's such an important message, actually, because I think we have, there's this idea that high intensity or, multiple modality therapy is what, is going to really make the difference. But actually, prevention is better than cure in a lot of circumstances. And if you can give someone the tools to work really sort of, independently and really maintain their own mental health, that's got to be a good thing, and doesn't take anything away from any of the other larger high intensity or multi-modalities. They're very needed. But I guess, it's great that we now have this extra thing we can put in for people that don't always meet the threshold for those services, but still need, a lot of some support, or a lot of support. So
absolutely. And there's also the other element, which it allows us to offer a less intrusive intervention for an individual, because not everyone wants the longer term support. It might not be what they're interested in or what they're looking for, and it allows us to be able to offer a wider range of opportunities for the people that we work with as well. And we know that one size doesn't fit all for everyone, and different approaches are going to work for different people.
Yeah, and it would be really great, just for sort of clarification, if you feel like you can, is to give us a little bit of an understanding around PWP and MHWP, because you're the MHWP course lead.
Absolutely.
And we've done a lot of sort of talk about PWPs, which is a very valuable role. But what is it about the MHWP that makes it slightly different, or sort of a single role in itself away from PWP?
Yes. Yeah. So very, very different in some ways, and then some similarities in others. So just to expand on that, so MHWP, or mental health and wellbeing practitioners, as they are known, the role has, just to give a bit of background, it's existed for the last 3 years. So there were some pilot sites across the country who started the training back in 2021. And then some other courses like ourselves joined in 2022. So it's still a role which in many ways is in its infancy compared with PWP, which was established quite a while ago. It's got a good decade on the MHWP role. So the nature of the MHWP role, the individuals who are MHWPs work within what are more of the traditional community mental health teams usually. So working in teams where individuals are being supported for what might be seen as more complex needs. So that includes individuals who might have diagnoses of bipolar, schizophrenia, personality disorders, in some situations psychosis, amongst other things, or individuals who need further support which wouldn't fit within other environments like NHS talking therapies. So they are equipped with CBT-based interventions with some borrowing from other types of approaches, including DBT or dialectical behavioural therapy. There are elements that are brought in as well. And it's very much geared at being able to work with individuals who do have diagnoses or might need or who have more sort of severe and enduring mental health issues that might need further support. So their roles involve the assessment, the treatment, and working with the individual, but they can also support care plans, which is very much around focusing on a whole body of care that is in place for an individual. So all of the more holistic elements of the support that that individual might need, which could include thinking about more in the physical health element. It could be the medication element. It could be social element. There could be all sorts of things, and thinking about how they fit within the wider team and being able to offer them more support, maybe than just beyond their psychological intervention that they might be providing. In comparison, PWP or psychological wellbeing practitioners are trained to provide assessment and treatment for common mental health issues. So mainly working with anxiety disorders and depression within talking therapies services. So they both have very sort of specialist view, perspectives, approaches, which suit their particular population that they are going to be working with within their services. So they're both low intensity approaches, both providing a guided self-help approach, but have very different focuses in terms of how they might work with an individual, the types of presentations they might support with as well.
I mean, that's a really, really helpful distinction, I think, because we can, I think we talk a lot about psychological practitioners, and then everyone gets clumped into that sort of umbrella, and actually they offer such wonderful things in such different areas, and it's really great to be able to sort of give those distinctions. And I'm so conscious that we've gone off of the questions that sort of you might have prepared yourself for, but I'm going to keep doing that because this is so interesting. It would be really great to understand, sort of as a course provider, what if somebody was looking at joining an MHWP course, is it that you'd sort of be looking for in those applications?
Sure. Good question, and I think there's probably quite a lot of things that we would look for. So I'll start just with education background, because that might be a helpful point for some thinking about, could they meet the criteria for this? So we offer two routes in terms of our course, and it's the same with all MHWP courses across the country, where we have a level 6 and also a level 7. So what that means is that we have a postgraduate certificate route, which is for individuals who already have a degree, and so they would be able to go onto the level 7 or the postgraduate route. Or if they don't have a degree, they can go into the level 6 or the graduate certificate route. So I think I would really want to emphasize to anyone who's listening to this is that you don't have to have a degree to be able to apply for this sort of role. That is not going to exclude you from the opportunity to interview for this role. I think I'd like to really highlight that to begin with. In terms of the things that I look for, because I can't obviously speak for everyone who runs these courses, but I can speak for myself. I really like to see some experience in different areas of work. Now, that is not going to be a deal breaker if you don't have a lot of experience. So I like to see that because it's nice for us to see that from you. That comes across in terms of people's applications, how they come across an interview, if you've got a bit more experience of working in some of these environments. Now, it doesn't have to be a direct bit of experience related to working with individuals with bipolar, schizophrenia, personality disorders, just some experience working in mental health settings or support settings in some way allows us to see that you're really motivated, that you're interested, that you have a passion to help people. That's the stuff that really helps us to see that you're enthusiastic. So yeah, in terms of applications, those would be the main things that stand out. Because this is a trainee position for a role which a lot of people will likely not have another profession. They're not going to be a nurse. They're not going to be an OT necessarily. So we're not expecting for reels of experience, but we would like to see some that shows that you are really interested and motivated and dedicated to mental health as well.
Experience in support settings doesn't have to be NHS settings. It doesn't have to be healthcare settings. Experience as working, I don't know, maybe in a school or supporting a family member that might have had some difficulties. That all counts, right? It's about the reflection and the learning from that.
Absolutely. I think that's a really nice way of putting it. And I think that just allows us to see, as you say, your reflective element to you, because that's going to be really important on the course. Any training course that an individual will go on, it's going to be challenging at times. You're going to need to record yourself. You're going to have to listen back to yourself. People are going to comment on your practice, your skills, and that can feel hard. But what helps people get through these courses is if you can come with what I like to call a confident humility. So a sense of, it's okay that I don't know everything. It's okay because I'm a trainee. I'm only just starting out. It's okay that I'm going to be told that I need to work on something or I'm not quite there yet in a part, and being okay and owning that. And though the individuals who can bring that attitude to interview and then beyond interview into the course are the ones who tend to be the most successful in terms of their experience and get the most out of these courses if they take that approach.
Part of the PPN mission is to support the collaboration and resilience of psychological professionals. To support this mission, Psychological Profession Networks over England offer staff working within mental health a space where they can connect and collaborate with colleagues working in similar services and roles. Here at the PPN Southeast, we currently have 3 operating communities of practice, also known as COPs. These communities of practice are the Psychological Practitioners COP, Aspiring Psychologist COP, and the Crisis COP. These spaces allow members to share good practice, support each other's well-being, share skills and knowledge, and make important connections that can be used to support themselves and their service users. You can get more information about these communities of practice from our PPN-SE website. The link is in the show notes below. Membership to the communities of practice is free, but please make sure that you are a registered PPN member to be eligible. Communities of practice, being excellent together.
Yeah, and I guess that's the important key message, isn't it? Is that you're applying for a trainee course. You're not applying for a qualified position. That will come later in your journey, but you're applying for something where, the primary aim of the course is to teach you. So you don't need to know everything, and you don't need to you just need to know what you know and know what you don't know. As my dad used to always say. But yeah, I think you've made some really fantastic points, and it's really interesting sort of hearing from someone in your position. I think we hear a lot from people who are working in those roles, but actually somebody who is thinking about what it might take right at the beginning to sort of get accepted or what would build the best practitioner. I think it's really interesting. hear from that. In terms of the courses that are provided, and as a course lead yourself, is there a specific sort of emphasis and dedication on supporting well-being, supporting sort of transition of these trainees? What does the course look like in terms of its sort of care, compassion and well-being for its students?
Sure. So just to give a bit of context, I think for anyone who is listening, that all of these training courses across the country for trainee MHWP are 12-month courses, and the expectation is that your time is split between a certain amount of time with your university, which would be the provider who trains you, and then the rest of the time is with your service that you would be assigned to. If you were to be on the course, then you're contracted to the NHS, you're contracted to a particular organisation, and then you are released to go to the university. So the reason why I mention this is because in terms of well-being, that you have the opportunity to seek out support from both sides. So all NHS organisations, trusts should have things in place, so the opportunity to access therapy, support, and other things as you're going through the training year. It's quite a unique situation to then have access to any university support. So all universities will have a wellbeing student support department. They will all have access to, if they are, for example, if they have dyslexia or if there are other additional needs that are required, then there are going to be support available. There will be services available for those individuals. We, as MHWP courses, will promote good well-being in terms of thinking about how do individuals look after themselves during the duration of the course. How do you keep a balance in your life outside of the course? But we also encourage our students to be, as they are, adult learners. So we also would encourage that they make sure that they've thought about what they're going to do. How are they going to look after themselves during the course and take care of themselves? Because it can be tough, and it is important to consider if there are particular stresses or you have particular commitments in your life. How are you going to manage those during the course? Because it's like doing a full-time job, but then also doing a training on top of it. So it will put more pressure on you than a full-time job might. So it is really worth thinking about how can you help yourself as well as accessing the support should you require it at any time.
And I think that's a really good caveat, because the last thing you want to do is apply for one of these courses and not really be informed about the amount of sort of resilience or the amount of time pressure that there is involved. So it's really great that you've mentioned that. And something that was coming to my mind while you were talking, Matt, was, the ability to have that support from both areas. So being able to have that well-being support from trusts, but also then from the university. And I guess that, is helpful for everybody, but I guess would be sort of really crucial for people who are coming from maybe a neurodivergent background where, the world works in a neurotypical way, and sometimes the support needed for people to be able to function in that world, or people from backgrounds that actually, might not have access to support or other types of services. So I think that's so great to mention and really lovely for people to know. So 2 more questions before we get to the last question, which is always my favourite. So just one before that. I guess when you're sort of in your role as a course lead and a qualified CBT therapist, EMDR therapist, what does a day look like? So are you primarily doing course leady type stuff? Or are you still seeing clients? Where are you fitting? What does your day look like?
So my week is split. So I spend 4 days a week on the course. So and I'll start with that. So the 4 days that I spend on the course is a mixture of things. So I teach directly on the course, so I do the bulk of the teaching. I provide supervision for students. I spend time preparing, improving, teaching, thinking about potential updates that are coming in and how we can think about how we can engage different groups of people that aren't perhaps engaged as much as we'd like to in terms of the content of the courses. So there's a real big push nationwide to include experts by experience in training and co-production of materials and so on. So for those who are listening who might not be so familiar, experts by experience are essentially individuals who have lived experience of, perhaps they've accessed services themselves, perhaps they've got experience of mental health issues themselves, they could have been a carer or a family member of someone as well. So individuals who are going to bring a whole different perspective to the teaching and the experience than we can provide. There's also a real push and something that's really important to us in terms of EDI, or equality, diversity and inclusion. So and this is a point that I wanted to make, that I think one of the things that our course, and I think every other course, really appreciates is that when we have a really diverse group of applicants and people who are in the room, and that might be ethnicity, that might be backgrounds, but it's also age, it's also life experience, it's all sorts of things which from my experience when I'm teaching, it makes it amazing when you have such a great mix of different opinions, different perspectives. And as a teacher, I like to be challenged. I like when people can ask and say, oh, I'm not sure about this, or what about this in this situation? Yeah, sorry, I know I'm going off topic here.
No,
I'll bring it
not.
Back to
I think it's absolutely relevant, and you're absolutely right to bring it in. And I think, we don't talk enough about people who change careers or people who are older, parents. Life experience doesn't just mean academic. It can be in all types of different socioeconomic backgrounds, different lived experience backgrounds. So no, I'm really thankful that you've that you've mentioned it. So yeah, and I guess just wanting to put that caveat on as well, that lived experience doesn't just have to be access to services or carers. You can also have a dual identity as a professional and someone with lived experience. So just as somebody who recognises themselves as that, I just wanted to put that out there, that, courses also, I would hope, would be open to people that are not just professionals, but people that have lived experience as professionals. And mental health as well. But
yeah,
sorry, you carry on. That's me harping on.
No, it's good. It's a good point, and a very nice point to make. So beyond that, we are a lot of courses are working through accreditation with the BPS. We're providing supervision training, providing preceptorships for newly qualified MHWPs. So there's a huge amount of stuff that's going on, and lots of developments within the role. Beyond that, 1 day a week, I work privately as a therapist. So every Friday I provide therapy, which is a nice sort of mix to my week. So having the responsibilities of the role Monday to Thursday, and then Fridays I get the opportunity to sit in a room and support my clients and work with my clients. So it's always a nice end to the week.
Yeah, no, that sounds great, and a lovely way to sort of really still, I guess, keep yourself fresh and in the door about what it feels like to be the person delivering the therapies when you're training people to deliver them. I think is always, a real positive. So before I get to the last question,
Sure.
Two very quick things. I keep doing this. I keep saying before I get there, and then more comes up. Two sort of very quick points. You spoke a little bit about, you sort of just mentioned accreditations. So is an MHWP a accredited core profession, or is it not? Because I know PWPs are. Where are we sitting with MHWPs?
So I think just to clarify what core profession means. So if you were looking at one of the other governing bodies, which is the BABCP, what would be classed as a core profession would be slightly different, and PWP wouldn't sit within a core profession. So that would be, for example, a CBT therapist, a nurse, an occupational therapist. There's a whole list on the BABCP website. But in terms of accredited, so yes, PWPs are accredited with the BABCP. And the PWP course is accredited with the BPS. So we're following suit. MHWP courses across the country are currently going through the process of accreditation with the BPS. Can't really say exactly when that's going to be done, because there are lots of moving parts involved in that, but it will become a BPS accredited course. And this has been relatively quick that this has turned around. The PWP course took years and years and years to get up and running with BPS accreditation. So we're only, 3 years into the creation of this course, and most places are, everywhere's applied. They put their applications in, so they're just going through the accreditation process at the moment.
And I guess even if you qualified before, in the last 2 cohorts, you can still apply for that accreditation.
Absolutely. So they'll be backdated. Yeah.
Amazing. And super quick, what is a preceptorship? You mentioned preceptorship.
Yeah. So preceptorship is quite a new thing which has come into environments like the MHWP, PWP. So preceptorship in its, essentially what it is when an individual first qualifies, it's hard work. You've done your trainee year, you're treated as a trainee, and then suddenly you qualify, and there you are. You're a qualified member of staff, and you're suddenly launched into the world of being a qualified member of staff. The idea of the preceptorship is a way of trying to support newly qualified individuals to come into their role. So it might involve additional training. It might involve additional support. It might involve getting to know the team better, and trying to develop those networks and that understanding of where you fit within the wider team. So it's a way of trying to support individuals making that huge leap from being a trainee to a qualified member of staff. So similar in teaching, they have NQTs, or newly qualified teachers. So it's that sort of idea that there's almost a recognition that you are currently going through your preceptorship. You are newly qualified. You don't have to be necessarily protected, but it's making sure that you are getting the support you need to get up to speed, to make sure you feel really confident in your role going forward.
Almost like a transition period from unqualified to qualified.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fab. Okay, so looking back on your journey to where you are now, Matt, can you tell us sort of what is one thing that you wish you knew right at the beginning? So back when you were sort of a HCA, back when you were an assistant, starting out your courses, what's the one thing that you wish you would have known that you know now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been thinking about this, and there's a few things that popped up. I think the first one is don't give up. If you've got a particular interest or something you really want to do, it might take some time, and the route might not be a straight route. It might not be from A to B. It may be from A to C to D, all the way to Z before you get to B. Like I did, I went through loads of different roles, including being a de-escalation and physical restraint instructor during my time, just to see kind of things that I I thought I just wanted to try things out and see what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy. And it's really interesting over the years seeing that I've worked in child and adolescent services, I've worked in adult services, I've worked in what is classed as the primary care in talking therapies, I've worked in inpatient environments, and it allows you to really understand what it is that works for you, what you enjoy. I've talked to loads of colleagues over the years where there's areas that they've really enjoyed working with, which I struggled more with, and vice versa, that they weren't, like they said it wouldn't be the environment for them. So I think keep trying things, be willing to try some different approaches, maybe go and try something out if you think you might like to pursue it as a career and see how you feel. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work out. Go and try something else. And I think that just makes you a more well-rounded professional. And I guess that feeds on to the next part of my point, which is don't rush to apply for courses. And I'm saying this as someone who runs a course, who would love to have people apply. But don't rush to apply for them. You know, I think all course leads want to see that people have really taken the time to think about, is this what they want? Are they doing this because they really care about it? Is it because this is the pathway that they can see themselves going down? So take your time. There's no rush to make these decisions, you know, and find out what you want to do. Look into it, research into it, see if you can get some work experience in an area you're finding interested in before you make that decision to apply. And then it will give you the confidence that you are pursuing a career path which works for you. So don't attach yourself to something too quickly, I guess is what I would be saying.
That's such brilliant advice. And I think, you know, we're all in such a rush that sometimes it's a rush to get nowhere, isn't it? And really taking that time to slow down and think, is this what I want to do, you know, for the next 60, 70 years? Or is this sort of something I'm using as a step to something else? And if I am, is this the right way to sort of do that? And yeah, I think that's such great advice. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for coming on the podcast today, Matt. We've had a great time sort of talking to you. I'm so sorry that I've thrown our entire plan out the window and gone completely rogue, but thank you for sort of bearing with me, I guess.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and I hope that those who are listening find something useful in my long-winded answers at times.
No, I think they really will. I know I've definitely found a lot of sort of useful things in your answers that I haven't thought about before in my sort of various moves through a lot of different roles. So it's definitely given me some things I'm going to think about and take forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
So that was Matthew Beaton, who is a qualified CBT therapist, but also the course lead to one of the MHWP training courses in the Southeast. Next week, we'll speak to me, actually, who is an assistant psychologist in the NHS, and that interview will be conducted by Kirsten Brown, who is an MHWP. If you'd like to hear more from a certain role, profession, or hear from a certain topic or issue, feel free to message us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn, or you can email us. All of these details, like usual, are in the show notes below. Remember that if you want regular updates and access to NHS information, governance and policies, please become a member of the PPN by visiting the website. Again, all of that information is in the notes below. Just to remember that registration and membership to the PPN is completely free and open to everyone, whether you're a person with lived experience, a professional, or a member of the public. Thank you so much for listening and coming back to listen to our podcast. We hope that you have a great couple of weeks, and we'll see you soon for the next episode. Thanks. Bye.